If you have preschoolers at home, you know that they love to play. And when you can combine learning with their play, that's even better. Hi, I'm Christy with Homeschooling in Progress. And in this video, I'm going to share with you several different activities that not only feel like play to little ones, but also help them develop fine motor skills. So let's go take a look. This first activity that I'm going to show you here is building with linking cubes. You can find these cubes online or in teacher stores. I like to just keep them in a basket sitting on a shelf so my son can get them out whenever he wants to use them. And for this, they're just building different spring-related items like rain clouds, birds, kites, flowers. And they just take the linking cubes and put them together. I did create this so that the cubes would fit right on there. And so if your kids are little or if they need that help, they can just put it right on there, make sure that they are building it correctly. They can just put them together. And it's a very easy activity that is wonderful with building those fine motor skills because they're putting the pieces together and taking them apart. It works with the visual discrimination of knowing how to put them together and what colors they need. So it's just a really great tool for preschoolers and kindergartners to work on. And then they also can put down how many cubes they've used, so you can add in some math to this activity. I like to just slide the pages into one of these little pocket protectors. You can find these at Dollar Tree, online. I always usually get mine at Dollar Tree, but I'm sure you can find them in other places. But these are great because you don't have to laminate it. You can just stick it in and they can write on it with a dry erase marker. Makes it really easy. Now, if you want a little more of a challenge for your children, especially if they're an older child like a kindergartner, or they just need more of a challenge, these also come in black and white. And children can just put them together like that. And so that would even add some creativity of choosing which colors they want to do. Or they can use the black and white pages with these little cards here that show just a smaller version of the larger pictures. So they can build the umbrella to match. So that uses even more skills of being able to see it and replicate it instead of just putting the pieces right onto the paper. You can also have the children color this. So after they create it, they could color it. I just print mine on regular copy paper instead of thicker paper for the black and white versions so they can be written right on. Another really fun activity that works on building fine motor skills is covering up circles on different spring-themed objects. And you can do the black and white version to use with the dotted dot markers to dab on there so that you can fill in the paper with that. My son loves using those dotted dot markers. Anytime he can have a chance to use them, he loves that. Or you could use a color version and then have children put pom-poms or these little gems. I believe these are found around like the aquarium or vase fillers. But kids can use the grasping to put them down. If you use pom-poms, they could use tongs maybe with them to put them on. They could color coordinate or just put them on just for fun with any colors. But this is another great activity that builds fine motor skills. It's very easy to use. This is an inexpensive activity. The markers here are a little on the pricier side, but they do last for years and years. I have been using these types of dotted dot markers since my 18-year-old was a preschooler, and I think we've only gone through 2 or 3 sets of them. So they do last for many years. And then these little gems here are found in the dollar store, or you could use pom-poms. Again, you can find those very easily in the craft section of stores. So a very inexpensive activity that is really great at using those pincer skills. Tracing is another really important skill for little kids to develop. It's important for them to develop that so that their handwriting is better as they get older. And this can be done in a variety of ways. They can trace pictures that they see in coloring books or on different pages. They could use this, specifically for tracing books. Like this is one I created where they can trace the spring picture and then trace the words underneath. That really helps them learn how to form letters correctly. All of these activities here that I'm showing, if they're printables, you can find them in my store. That most of them come from one of my spring activities of either spring math and literacy or spring fine motor. And then there's also a bundle where they are 20% off when you get them together. So I'll leave a link in that below. But all of these things you can also do without purchasing something. You could, grab a piece of paper and draw some lines that your kids trace. So, you definitely don't have to buy a lot of things to work on fine motor skills. If you don't have time to make your own or you just don't want to, then there are some that you can purchase to make it easy on yourself. So here's a little spring tracing book, and then they can color, which is also something good to work on fine motor skills. Or you could take pages and slip them in one of these page protectors that I mentioned earlier, and then they can use dry erase markers to trace the lines here. I also have in my math and literacy spring activities, I also have some pages they can use to trace the alphabet. They have lowercase and uppercase. There are some number cards. These also are really great to use with Play-Doh. But they also help build skills of math and literacy. I like to leave activities like this out on shelves for my son to just pull out whenever he wants to use them. So once he's done with his more formal homeschool kindergarten curriculum that we use, when he's done with that for the day, he can just pull these out and use them whenever he feels like it. So if he feels like writing that day, or if he feels like building with cubes, or if he feels like playing with Play-Doh, he can do the activity. The number ones are also fun. You can use things like pom-poms or little erasers, and you can put them on to practice with counting. They could put them up on the leaf here. So these are fun ways to practice math skills along with fine motor skills. And I mentioned that he likes to use Play-Doh with these. You can roll the Play-Doh into little snakes to form the letters or numbers. And then I also, in my fine motor activities bundle, I have pages where they can make spring objects. And he loves doing this with the Play-Doh. Again, I just slide it into one of these little page protectors. I don't even separate the pieces. He can just do both. And then he can use a dry erase marker to write the words underneath, which again is helping with building vocabulary and with learning how to write letters. So lots of fun ways to practice fine motor skills. Here's a fun little spring activity that can also be used around Easter that works with fine motor skills and with counting. I found these little bunnies at the dollar store, and I picked up some of these wooden beads there as well. And then I just put together this little counting activity. I had some little themed, spring themed stickers that I put on here and I wrote the numbers 1 through 10 on here. I could have just written with a Sharpie right on here, but I thought then I could use these bunnies for some other activity as well. Then I taped down some spring colored pipe cleaners. And for this activity, the kids would just use the wooden beads and thread them through the pipe cleaners. And they would count and put as many beads as the number on the bunny. So here they would just do 3 up to the 10 here. They could also work with patterns and do different colored patterns for the bunnies. But this is just a really cute activity. I put the little beads in a little Easter basket that I found at Hobby Lobby a few years ago. And this is pretty inexpensive. I already had the basket and the pipe cleaner at home, so it was just a couple of dollars to get the beads and the bunnies. Really inexpensive activity. You could put it in a tray, just stick on a shelf, and kids will enjoy it for Easter time or in spring. Earlier, I showed you the little cards that kids can use to build with Play-Doh, but another idea for an activity with Play-Doh is to just have some Play-Doh out with some different spring-themed colors and objects that kids can use with the Play-Doh. So they could just have the different Play-Doh here, and they could roll it out with the Play-Doh tools, and they could put little spring-themed objects in them just for fun. They could, count them and see how many they have. They could use little gems to put it in there. They could build, they could roll out a flower and then use the gems to put in the petals. Or you could use some different spring-colored paper straws and cut them up into different pieces, and they can stick those in the Play-Doh. So you don't even need to always use something that you can print off. You can just kind of set this out on a tray with some different objects that are for spring, and you have a really fun, easy to set up activity that your kids are going to love. I know kids love playing with Play-Doh. Every child I've ever had over at my house has loved playing with Play-Doh. I like to make our Play-Doh at home. I don't really like the smell of the store-bought Play-Doh, so every so often I'll make some in some fun colors, so we have some fun spring colors here. The gems, like I mentioned, I found at the dollar store. I found the paper straws there as well. And then I found these smaller wood pieces at the dollar store. They have some with some spring objects like the butterflies and the birds. But then I also found these larger ones a year or two ago at Hobby Lobby. They a lot of times will have the wood pieces in their craft areas or in their seasonal areas. So you could also look there. They're a little bit larger, but very similar concept. I think the important thing when you are creating activities for your kids is to have it look inviting. When you set up little, I like to call them invitations to play, when you set those up, you are inviting your children to use their creativity and to, kind of pique their interest in these different activities instead of just using a screen or doing the same activity over and over again. Give them some choices. I love to set our activities up on a shelf, so then my son can just pull them out as he wants. He knows he's welcome to use them. Most of these are activities we do over and over again. They're just themed for the season or for holidays, and so he already knows how to use them. So that's really important when you want to have things for your kids to do, is to make it easy for yourself and use materials you already have at home or that are easy to find or easy to print, and make it where your kids can easily get to it by putting it on a shelf for them. You just need to switch it out. If it's themed things, you can just switch it out once a month. I did show these cards with the alphabet letters on them earlier when we were talking about Play-Doh and dry erase markers, but I also wanted to mention that another fun way to work on fine motor skills and to build on creating shapes or numbers or letters is to have like a little salt tray. This is just a container that I had some, I think, puzzle pieces from Melissa and Doug maybe came in. I just usually keep wood trays like this because they're great for putting different activities in. And you could just use white salt. I like to color salt for the season, so I just colored some green and blue and kind of mixed it together here. And your kids can use their fingers or a Q-tip or a paintbrush to create letters or shapes or numbers. And you could take these cards apart, and if you had a little holder like this at the top, you could put them in there. Or if you didn't, they could just have it right next to them. They could create the letter or number or shape in the salt here. You could also use that little fine sand in this as well. And then they can just shake it to make another one. So again, a really inexpensive thing that they can do. You don't have to use printed cards. You could use flashcards. You could use puzzle pieces and put the letters next to them and have them copy them. So a really easy activity that can help build not only fine motor skills, but learning how to form letters, numbers, or shapes correctly. If you had a bigger box, you could even have them, as they get older, work on writing words, or when they move up into spelling, then they could do their spelling words in there for practice. Another fun activity my son's been really into recently is color by number worksheets. And so I've created a couple of sets so far and plan to do a lot more because he's loving these. But these are just really fun pages that you can print out, no prep at all. So if you need an activity to keep your little one busy so that you can get some work done, or maybe you're traveling and want to take some with you, this is something that's really easy to do. The Easter set here has a lot of different skills. There's some addition to 5 and 10. There's identifying teen numbers, or numbers to 5 or 10. Identifying numbers by counting them on dominoes or using a 10 frame. And then the spring set is adding numbers from 0 to 5 and then adding up to 10 for your sums. If your child can't really read the color words yet, you could take a crayon here and then just color this in so they know what colors they're using, which makes it a lot easier for them to color it themselves. They can just look for the number and then see what color they're supposed to use. And for this one, all you need are the sheets and some crayons. So it's a really easy, quick activity to get together when you need something for your kids to do and they can work on their math skills at the same time. So again, any of the printable pages that I showed, I do have available in my store. So I will leave a link to those products below if you're interested in that. Hopefully this gave you some ideas of some fun spring and or Easter themed activities that you can do with your kids, especially preschool and kindergarten age, because building those fine motor skills is so important at that age so that the kids can cut and write and have strong hands when they get older. Thank you for watching and happy homeschooling.